So thanks for checking out this video. This is just a prototype working on. I'm going to do 3 videos for this. I'm just going to describe the different features of this particular guitar just because I listed it for sale. I'll do another video talking about why I decided to make this and some of the design changes and some of the issues if you're going to try to make one of these. And then I'll do a third video just playing. I'm not much of a player, but I'll just show you the sounds you can get from it. I did notice I'm now using a Windows Movie Maker with a Samson Go mic, a little condenser mic. So I found out that even with the new microphone, I'd been using the webcam software and it was still just terrible sound. So hopefully the videos from now on will have a better sound now that I got this microphone and I'm using the different software. So this is made from a 2x8. There was a little patch of paint that I was testing the color. I did draw a fretboard on it according to a fret calculator, online fret calculator. It's not completely accurate because it's not taking into consideration how much you're pressing down on the slide. So if you're gonna, after you paint this, you might want to just mark that off or just get a chromatic tuner and mark it off yourself. That's what I plan to do. As far as putting a piece of on the ones in the future is not doing the actual final lines on it, which you can just do with a Sharpie like I did here. Is just put a piece of like poster board or something in there underneath it and then mark it off with a chromatic tuner as far as actually playing it with the slide. The tuners on here are well, the overall length is about, I think, about 32 inches. That's just going off memory. It's about 1/3 of a 8-foot plank. That's what it is. And the scale length is 22 3/4. The pickup in here is a single coil pickup from a Squier Bullet Strat that I overwound to 7.4. If I had to do it again, I'd do it 7.0 just because it was hard to get the cover back on. But I did wax pot it, and it gives it a slightly thicker sound. And I do have a steel base plate that I put underneath there to also thicken the sound. And what else? The nut, the bridge, and the string retainer is all made out of an aluminum angle. This is actually the full size one. It's about 19 millimeters by 19 millimeters on the sides, and it's slotted there and slotted here. If you change the string sizes for different tunings, you may or may not get a buzz on the bridge side because you may need to sand down and change the size of the notches a little bit, because you can't, well, I guess if you filed the back of it, maybe you could get away with not having to notch the bridge. But once you go pushing down on the slide as you go further up, if there's no notch there, then you're going to be pressing against flat metal and it's going to want to buzz a little bit. There's no springs underneath the pickup. I originally had drilled the cavity too deep. I'll go over more of how I made it in the next video. And I'd put in a piece of 1/4 inch hardwood plywood, and even with springs and foam underneath it, it was just a little bit too high. Just sometimes if you went really high, you'd kind of start hitting the pickup with the string. So I took out those springs and it's just right up against the wood, and it's supposed to sound better that way than on the pick if you were to have a pick guard on the top. I go over that in the next video. The electronics have just the volume and a tone. These are 250s. The volume is a linear, so there's less, it's a gradual control on the volume there. These are all made from spare parts or extra parts, so there might be some wear on it, and they're not exactly high quality. In fact, the jack, when I first put that in, I had to, after I used a couple times, had to open that, take that back off, and bend that little piece on there a little bit stiffer so it would hold the plug in. And even this nut that holds it on, it works, but it was originally just a little bit loose, so I did put a little bit of Loctite on there. But using a wrench, you'll be able to get it right off. But just keep that in mind. This was made from spare parts. What else? That's the grounding wire there. These tuners, they're used These are, I think they're all parts. One's kind you get at Guitar Center for 13 bucks. They're mismatched. These are two from the same side. You know, that's why you see them different a little bit, but they work. These kind of have two sets of holes in it so that they can be used for a slotted headstock for steel strings, not for classicals, but for steel strings. And there's no bushings on there. Currently have it tuned. I just use spare strings that I strung this up with. There's a 48, 46, 36, 27, 17, and a 13. And the 27, their G string, is a phosphor wound acoustic string, but the pickup is picking it up pretty well. And it's just tuned to an E chord, which is tuned down to D. So it's like the E shape, but tuned down to D. Originally I had used the full length of the nut of the angle there, and the strings were just tighter and there just wasn't as much sustain with it. The tuners are holding pretty good, but with these type of tuners, I don't know if they get old or just the way they are, sometimes the actual button itself, not the post, but this part here will get loose. So whenever you're tuning, make sure you're tuning down and then tuning up to pitch so that it stays in place. But occasionally you get ones, you're playing a song or something, you'll hear it rattle just a little bit, especially if you start to go into alternate tunings and weird tunings. That's just the way they are, but they do hold the tuning pretty well. And I do have this tuned down to D because it seems like it just sustains better. Sustains better with looser strings. So I'll probably go with a slightly shorter scale. This is 22 3/4. What else can I go over with? It's been sanded all over to 150 grit. There might still be some stray, like I didn't take out these saw marks in the back there just because it was hard to get to even with the belt sander. There's a slight couple of glued cracks. There was, when I cut the corner there, a chunk of this back part came off over here, so I just glued it and clamped it. Then when I was screwing in this angle here, one small crack developed there, and I just squirted some very thick super glue in there, and it seems to be holding pretty well. It's just because the grain is just that semicircle right on here, but otherwise it's nice and strong, you know. Stronger than I thought it would be for pine, even with this headstock, because all the directions online say to use hardwood, and they say, well, you know, you can try pine, and because I wasn't going to spend 40 bucks on a piece of hardwood. That's basically it. I could probably go more of it in the second video when I talk about why I made it, how I made it, but I listed this for sale just as my prototype, the first attempt on one. It was actually more of a pain to make than I thought it would be. That's why I'm not sure if I'm going to make some to sell as far as a finished one or even just bodies. I mean, I did order a router bit to hopefully make the cavities a little bit easier. But like I said, I'll go more over the design and stuff like that in the second video, and then the third video is just some playing, you know, some clean playing with or without the reverb and whatnot, so you can hear the different sounds. You do need a good solid steel. The regular old bottleneck, whatever, finger steel is just not going to give you the sustain with it. Okay, so I just wanted to show you the insides, the controls just a little bit. If I can pull out there. If you can see that there, but there is foil tape underneath that pickguard, and these are just small little pots that I had. The screw on this side on the edge is not really screwing into too much wood there, and you could probably try to replace these with full-size pots if you really wanted to. You may have to make the cavity bigger. Any questions, please let me know.